Here is the official notice for the removal of the sign.
Thank you, officer.
All right, let's talk about something that trips up so many entrepreneurs: trademarks. Specifically, who actually owns a brand name? Now, I'm going to tell you right now, the answer probably isn't what you think it is. And getting this wrong, it can cost you big time. So let me ask you something. Let's say you've been using a brand name for years, building up a loyal customer base. That makes it yours, right? You were there first, you have the rights. That's what most people assume, but that assumption, well, it could literally cost you your entire brand. Okay, to see just how high the stakes are, let's look at a real-world legal battle. On one side, you have a company selling a medicine called Xenaps. They've been using that name since 2004, but they never got around to registering it. Then another company comes along and starts selling a medicine called Xynaps. Almost the exact same name, right? But they registered it right away in 2007. So who won this fight? The first to use it or the first to register it? While the Supreme Court didn't mince words, the winner was Pharm, the company that registered Xynaps. The court made it crystal clear. Using a name doesn't make you the owner. Registering it does. And that piece of paper, that registration, is powerful. It gives you nationwide protection and the legal power to shut down anyone who tries to copy you. This single ruling completely changed the game. Okay, so to really get why the court made that call, we've got to break down some key terms. They might all sound kind of the same: trademark, service mark, trait name, but in the eyes of the law, trust me, they are very, very different. First up, the big one, a trademark. This is any sign, could be a word, a logo, whatever, that you slap onto a physical product. So think about the name on a bottle of beauty cream. That name is the trademark. It tells you, hey, this is our cream, and it sets it apart from all the others on the shelf. Pretty simple, right? Well, a service mark is basically the exact same concept, just for a service instead of a physical thing. So if you're a delivery company, your logo and your brand name, those are service marks. They identify your delivery service. And finally, this is the one that often confuses people: the trade name. This has nothing to do with a specific product. This is the name of your entire business. So, for example, a company might have a trademark on their Morning Buzz coffee, but the actual name of their company, like San Francisco Coffee and Roasteries, Inc., that's their trade name. And this right here, this table is the key to understanding everything. Look at that middle row. For a trademark on a product, how do you get the rights? By registration. But for a trade name, the name of your business, how do you get the rights? Just by using it. This is exactly why the Xynaps case went the way it did. They were fighting over a trademark for a product where registration is king. All right, so if registration is the golden ticket, you're probably wondering, okay, what's the catch? Are there rules? What kind of things will the Intellectual Property Office just flat out say no to? I mean, can you just point to any word or any symbol and claim it for yourself? As you might have guessed, the answer is a big, fat no. There's a whole list of things that are completely off limits. Yeah, the law has a whole list of no-goes. You can't register anything scandalous, you can't use national flags, and you can't try to trademark something generic, like you can't trademark the word apple if you're selling, actual apples. But the one I want to focus on is that rule against creating a false connection, which leads to a really interesting story. So get this, a company actually tried to register the name Harvard as a brand for jeans. And to make it even more obvious, they claimed the brand's origin was Cambridge, Massachusetts, the home of Harvard University. I think you can see where this is going. And well, the court saw right through it. The law is super clear. You cannot register a market that falsely suggests you're connected to a famous person or institution. By using Harvard and mentioning Cambridge, the company was obviously trying to trick people into thinking their jeans had some link to the university. So yeah, registration denied. So that whole confusingly similar idea we just mentioned, that's really the core of most trademark fights. But how does a court actually figure that out? It's not just a gut feeling. They have actual legal tests they use to make the call. If there is one phrase you need to remember from all of this, it's likelihood of confusion. That's the whole ballgame. Is the average person going to get confused about who made the product? To figure that out, courts use two main tests. First, you've got the dominancy test. This one zooms in on the most important, the most dominant part of the brand name or logo. It asks, what's the one thing that really jumps out at you? Then you have the holistic test. This one takes a step back and looks at the whole picture, the name, the colors, the packaging, the whole vibe, and asks if the overall impression is just too similar. Okay, enough with the theory. Let's get to the fun part and see how these tests, especially that dominancy test, play out in some real-world brand battles you've probably heard of. First up, a classic showdown, McDonald's and its legendary Big Mac hamburger, versus a local spot that rolled out the Big Mac. Spelled differently, but said out loud, exactly the same. The Supreme Court basically said, come on, they used the dominancy test and it was a slam dunk. The dominant feature here is the sound. Big Mac sounds identical to Big Mac. Changing a C to a K just doesn't cut it. McDonald's easily won that one. Okay, so what if the name is just part of the other name? Let's look at Nestle's infant formula brand, Nan, versus a competitor that came out with a product called Nanny. And once again, it all came down to the dominancy test. The court said the most powerful, the most prevalent part of Nestle's brand is Nan. Since the competitor's brand, Nanny, literally contains that dominant feature right at the start, it was just too confusing. Another case of infringement. All right, one last example. What if the change is a little more visual, a little more subtle? We've got the electronics giant Philips versus a new brand of light bulbs called Philites. And you can probably guess how this went. The court honed in on what your eyes see first, PHIL. They said that's the dominant part that catches your attention. Since Philites copied that dominant visual chunk while selling the exact same type of product, it was ruled an infringement. You see the pattern here, right? Find the dominant part of a brand and copy it, and you're probably going to have a bad time in court. So this all brings us right back to where we started. Your brand is everything. It's your identity, it's your reputation, and we've seen pretty clearly that just using it day in and day out is not enough. The only real way to protect it, to truly own it, is through registration. So let me ask you again. Your brand is your identity. Is it truly protected?